Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Friday, December 4th, 2020, and I'd like to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, well, I'm doing this video after my 12-hour shift, so there's a lot of activity you can hear in the background. But in any case, I wanted to do the video no matter what. There's been a lot of stuff to do at work, and I work 7 days a week with the holidays coming up and everything. It's just a lot of stuff coming into the store, and it's just a lot of work to do. But it's unfortunate because it cuts into my time that I can use to research and actually enjoy myself and listen and watch some of the things that I'm interested in on YouTube. So, in any case, I didn't want to leave any loose ends or a weekend without getting a video out, and I have a interview coming up on December 14th with Mike on Conflict Radio, which is he also has a YouTube page here on YouTube. So if you haven't, he's like a George Norrie kind of guy, that sort of format on his coast to coast sort of format with all this sort of ghosts and UFOs and the occult and all this other stuff. So many things that I have criticisms of. So I'm going to be a very unusual guest for him. So look for it coming up December 14th. I'll see if I can get it posted shortly after that, depending upon it's his show. So, but I'll try to post that on my channel too. So, in any case, let us continue with part two in my series looking into the accounts of the quote unquote giants or large hominids, as I like to call them, international. And this time we're going to look at Germany and Austria. And there's some very interesting different aspects to looking at each one of these countries, and we're going to hear about some of this sort of different stuff that's so relevant to the giants, including the giants living into historical times. And it's quite obvious that they did. I mean, we have the chiefs of the Fiji Island, we have the Watusi people, we had these accounts of even in the 20th century of possibly living giants in remote Greenland. There, I just did a video on that not too long ago. So, it seems to me that the giants were living into the historical times, and at least, pockets of them possibly here and there, and then, even in some of the, mainland countries of Europe and even UK. So, it's just this is what we're going to be looking at when we look at Germany here. And also, if you haven't been following along with the whole Giants series, especially the Giants in the Americas, for example, you're not going to have as much of an appreciation for some of these accounts that we're hearing about in Europe. So go back and maybe watch some of those in whatever states that you think you like. I have them all in a playlist. You can go to the playlist on my channel and look at them. And because people who have been following along are going to see that the similarities with some of these accounts are just, don't seem to be coincidental. So you just have to pay attention to these things and the details of these things, even if some of them don't have a lot of details, but they have some that are very curious. So let's get right to it here. And here's the first one from Chris Leslie's site here, Greater Ancestors World Museum. Munich Germans were giants. Skeletons of prehistoric giants were found when a sand pit was excavated near this city. The workers uncovered 40 well-preserved skeletons averaging 7 feet in height and many primitive stone implements. Okay, so there's a number of things here that, again, if you've been following along on my channel here with the accounts of the giants, then you're going to recognize some of these sort of similarities and other things to make note of these accounts. And what I get right away is that they're buried in sand. And we heard about many of these large scale remains being buried in sand in the Americas, and also in gravel. So, although sand and gravel is not stone or boulders or rocks per se, apparently there's some, significance to the giants, because they seem to pick these types of materials to, bury their, um, important people in. So, and if I remember correctly from the accounts of the giants in the Americas, these ones buried in sand and gravel, often in gravel, were much, much bigger. And in my opinion, many of the accounts of the giants that are like 12 and 13 and 14 feet tall in the Americas are much older than these accounts that we've even heard so far in Europe. So that's why I'm saying this whole thing where it's the new world and the new world, and this whole new world bias is something, it's just another thing that you hear on my channel that you're not going to hear anywhere else on YouTube, because, everybody's stuck into brainwashing from, their academic, brainwashing academies there. So that's one thing. The sand. So apparently, sand, gravel, things like this, or some significance, some, maybe ceremonial significance. They seem to know about the properties of these things, and certainly, the way that these things act and what they are and everything else is quite different than, when you look at a boulder. So it's just, just the actual sort of significance and recognition of these materials that these giants were buried in. And then you have, it's 40 of them. So are we talking about, at some period, and it seems to be the latter period of being 7 feet tall. It seems the further back in time you go, the bigger the giants got. That's why I think that the giants in the Americas were far older than the ones in so far that we can find in Europe. But as we're going to find out, the giants are just everywhere on this planet in the past. So, and as well as many other kinds of humanoids. So that's one thing. Is this, does this reflect the giant genocide? These 40 skeletons, did they show, violence? What was, we only see this little tiny article here, so we can't possibly know those things. But is it? I mean, I have to question these things when we see these sort of mass burials going on with the giants. And this might reflect that. I don't know. And, the fact that they're 7 feet tall, probably in the latter periods, more closer towards historic times, and perhaps, later in the Holocene, 4 or 5 thousand years into the Holocene, some, 8, 9 thousand years ago. So, again, if you've been following along with the accounts of the giants, these are the things that you're probably going to notice about these accounts. And it's just uncanny and so coincidental that they're so similar to the ones that we heard about in the Americas. I mean, I think that's something that needs to be considered. 9 feet tall, Rhineland, Germany, 1987. So this is well into the 20th century. They found this rather large femur joint of a giant 9 feet tall, Rhineland, Germany, 1987. From the book Megalithic Research in the Netherlands, 1547 to 1911, by Jan Albert Baker on Rhineland, Germany. The naked or almost naked wild men always carried a wooden club like Picard's giants and were associated both with the primeval forest before the fall and with the unrestrained abandonment to dancing, drinking, and sex. They were first depicted in the art of the mid 13th century, became very popular in the later half of the 14th century. Oskamp discussed wild men on 16th century Rhineland stoneware and referred to the catalog de Weilen Lut de Mittelalters Hamburg, pointed out similarities in dress, etc., between the people on the pictures in Picard's book and those on the plates in Cloverius 1616. And apparently, these wild men are wearing clothing. And who are these wild men? Are these wild men like Bigfoot creatures, or is this just yet another one of these genetically engineered organisms from the past? Like what I believe many of the cryptids are. You're not going to hear this anywhere else on YouTube either. Okay, there's no question in my mind that people were toying around with genetic engineering in the past, a more advanced civilization in a laboratory somewhere. Because of corn. Corn is just impossible. It's just impossible. Okay, that cavemen made corn. It's just we can't do it today. How they do it, and why would they do it? Starving in a savage wilderness with all kinds of giant creatures, and, all, and they're experimenting with growing with crops that have practically no yield whatsoever. Just hopes of the increasing the yield in the future. By doing it hundreds and thousands of times over and over and over again until they got finally corn. Are you kidding me? I don't think so. Okay, so you have all of these creatures all over this planet, what they call the cryptids. Okay, and they just, not coming from another dimension, although maybe some of them are. Who knows? They're opening up rifts in other dimensions with CERN and God knows what. You know, Maybe they are letting creatures in, but I don't think they're coming from outer space. It's a different story. We're not going to get into that now. But okay, so megalithic research in the Netherlands, 1547 and 1911, from giants' beds and pillars of Hercules to accurate investigations. Jan Albert Baker, 2010. Okay, so what's Chris Leslie saying here? People always ask where are the bones. This is a loaded question. Think about it. All you have seen of any fossil is a photo. Think of all the photos of various human bones. And Neanderthal fossils, you have seen their photos. What about in museums? Have you seen their fossils there, right? No. Fossils are not displayed in museums, replicas are. In the same way, you can see a photo here and a replica at the Greater Ancestors World Museum in Jacksonville, Florida. Those are the bones. Okay, but there's another thing to this too that Chris is not mentioning here. Okay, and that is that um, it's disingenuous to ask for somebody to produce giant bones, considering that we've read so many accounts from the past where these bones, when it first exposed to air, just completely disintegrated into dust. So, what percentage of these large skeletal remains can survive from the past? Okay, next to none, apparently. So, the insistence upon the sort of skeptics and naysayers and all this kind of stuff to produce a giant skeleton is pretty disingenuous, considering that there's so many timelines where human beings existed in the Americas where they have categorized as, so the woodland period and the paleo period and all of these periods, upper woodland, lower woodland, all this kind of stuff that they've categorized. Meanwhile, in many instances, they can't produce a skeleton from any of those eras that they existed. They can only find the artifacts. Okay. And much of the reason is because when these things were being dug up with the giant craze in the past during the Victorian period, etc. Okay. And they were digging all these things up willy nilly and going crazy and everything. We heard one account where the guy attempted to spray the stuff or paint it with shellac or something like that real fast to try to preserve the thing. First, first steps in trying to preserve these skeletons or whatever. But, then Alice Hurlikas and C.H. Holmes came along with the Bureau of Ethnology, and all this stuff got thrown in the garbage or dumped at sea or whatever they did with them from a barge or whatnot. And here we see, and this is what I'm talking about, giants living up into historic times. Well, maybe you never thought about it, but in the medieval times, okay, with all these armors that are built for these giants, okay, guys like 8 feet tall, armor 8 feet tall. You can see in this picture here, the armor next to him is the average size armor person, okay. Who's wearing this? Okay, was he suffering from acromegaly or gigantism with respiratory problems and heart problems with frail joints and everything else like that? You think that was the guy that was in there? Come on now. Okay, and just to refer again to the account that C.W. Saran gave of the guy from Pompeii, and all the accounts of the giant chieftains, including Chief Mongatuxi here out in the Montaukett tribe here. His legend, he was building canals, engineering canals, dredging and doing whatever he was doing there that would cost millions and millions and millions of dollars by today's standards and whatnot. Okay, and he was a good giant, by the way. He wasn't a bad one. He was a fierce guy. Nobody want to mess with him. Okay, but he was a fierce protector of his tribe, not a bad guy. Okay, and his tribe seemed to be just ordinary sized people, or maybe a bunch of hybrids in ordinary sized people at the time that he lived. Okay, because he was a hybrid himself. Okay, from the giants. Okay, so giant armor from Reichsberg in London. This is in Reichsberg. Here's a man for scale. The person that wore this armor must have been more than 7 feet tall. You can see compared to what's probably a horseman's armor, which would fit the average size person today. Again, average size today is 5 foot 8 inches tall. Something like what, 170 something centimeters or whatever it is. It's nothing. Okay, here's a female posing for comparison with the same armor. She's of average height next to this giant. And here's another set of giants armor. This one hails from London. Here's another look at the London giant, which stood about 6 foot tall. Okay, which would be somebody of unusual height for that time, because average height was something like 5'3" to 5'5". Okay, so that's little short guys right there. Okay, before 1800, and it was the same way all the way back to the Stone Age, according to them. Okay, without looking at all these giants and other humanoid bones from around the world, which they do not want to acknowledge. Okay, so apparently there were pockets of giants, still surviving up into historical times. Okay, not fluke people that's suffering from acromegaly or gigantism, more like people from the Watusi and the Fiji Island chiefs, that everybody's born at that height. The women, the children, everybody's, no, it's not a fluke because of the pituitary gland. Not everybody in the whole tribe or the whole clan there in the Fiji Islands, not every one of them doesn't have pituitary problems or whatever it is. They're built like solid giant warriors, that you would not want to mess with in a dark alley, that's for sure. Get bent in half backwards like they did That's what they did to these giants to humiliate them. At Galena Canyon, we found other instances in the accounts of the giants. They bent them over backwards and broke their backs and their necks like that for some reason. It's just like a ritual humiliation, I think, against the giants by average sized humans. Elongated Skull, Germany? What's this doing here? Okay, so we've got an elongated skull there in Germany. And is anybody surprised or shocked by that? Yeah, I did a video on this channel, elongated skulls from Lebanon to Korea, and we went through all the areas there. We didn't cover any European countries, but here's one right there in Germany. And apparently 20 of these were dug up. At a museum display in Tuschersfeld, Germany, the inscription with the skull states that about 20 of these male and female skulls were found in the Franconia Suisse area of Bavaria, Germany. So, wow, isn't that cool? And I'm sure it was naturally formed. Listen, folks, don't let him kid you, okay? Yes, there's cranial deformation. There's artificial cranial deformation practiced by some tribes around the world for some reason. What are they trying to emulate anyway? And there's clear evidence of that, okay? So the one thing you have to remember, if I take some blocks of wood and strap them to your head right now, right this very second, okay, and keep doing that for 20, 30 years or whatever it is, okay, your head is going to take on that shape, no doubt, okay, but it's not going to grow bigger. You see, here's the problem when they say this. Yes, it's artificial cranial deformation. For some reason, the area inside the cranium is bigger. It won't make your head bigger if I block it off with wood or whatever it is and make it into a cube or something. You turn it into a blockhead or something like that. Okay, your blockhead. It's not going to grow in size though. That's the thing. It's laughable what they say, okay? They're going to say, it's artificial cranial deformation. Oh, really? And it's going to make the skull grow bigger in volume, right? I don't think so, okay? When you see examples of cranial deformation on average people in these tribes and everything, their heads aren't bigger. They're just shaped that way, that's all. They didn't grow bigger in size. So, look, just don't let them fool you, because this is what they're going to say. Artificial cranial deformation is clear as day. You can see here that the sutures don't match that of Homo sapien. In fact, I don't even see them. They're way up here at the top somewhere. Some weird configuration of sutures there going on. Okay, but it's not Homo sapien, guys. Corral, giant jaw, and thigh bone. A German savant has just discovered the remains of prehistoric man near Corral. The report of the discovery states that, quote, the interest of the remains is increased by the discovery of a lower human jaw under a gigantic thigh bone, unquote. Probably some too loquacious prehistoric orator has been sat down upon by a prehistoric giant. Nyah, 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 nyah. This is characteristic of sort of Victorian news reporting. They put these sort of jokes in there, and the whole situation with the giants was all poisoned by the Cardiff giant. And if you want to hear the real story about the Cardiff giant, you're going to hear it on my channel. You're going to hear it nowhere else, folks. Nothing on my channel is the same take as everybody else you've ever heard, for a reason. Okay, those are all rabbit holes for you to go down. Okay, that's the controlled opposition for you to follow. Okay, this is not. Okay, my BS detector works 100% and it's on all the time. Okay, so we're gonna get by all that stuff, okay? You follow me here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna get the straight story. You're not gonna get all this fluffed up nonsense, and somebody takes a one liner and makes it into a whole novel or whatever it is, based on pure speculation and fantasy. Okay. New stat: prehistoric giant bone. Giant prehistoric bone believed to be human relic throws village into turmoil. And when the heck was this from? This is 1926. So even in 1926, these people in this probably sleepy little village there in Germany, got all disjointed when they dug up this giant bone, and they finally got something going on in town over there. But let's read it anyway. It's near Berlin, I guess, outside of Berlin or something like that. At least it's reported there. This is the tale of a marvelous bone that threw a whole Bavarian district out of joint. The little medieval German town of Neustadt in Bavaria decided to modernize itself and to acquire a sewer system as a first step towards this end. A gang of workmen at once started to dig, and during the excavations, a worker discovered an object which, after long discussions, was pronounced by the foreman to be, quote unquote, a bone. The head foreman was called. The assistant engineer appeared. Even the chief engineer was aroused from his afternoon nap, and the entire congregation decided to bring the bone to the town hall and lay the whole matter before the burgomaster and the municipal council. This they did. A special session was called, and the burgomaster, who was known to possess the acutest brain of the town, carefully inspected the bone, did some hurried but deep thinking, and declared the relic to be the thigh bone of a prehistoric human being of gigantic dimensions. The news of the wonderful find spread over the town. Crowds beleaguered the town hall, demanding a peek at the venerable relic, and the general excitement grew until the burgomaster, in order to calm his flock somewhat, decided to celebrate the historic event by the customary beer fest dear to all German hearts. Okay, so it's cut off there. So it starts back over here. Quench the thirst of enthusiastic burgers. I'm sure it was talking about the beer out of some glass boots, no doubt. At the height of the celebration, the burgomaster got up and delivered a stirring address, carrying the audience to ecstatic heights. This bone, he said, will carry the glory of our town to the whole world. New York, London, and Paris will envy us our possession. Scientists will I don't know what this says, will through throw before our gates, I guess. Gentlemen, our bone, the pride of our town. Hock, hock, hock. And frantic applause, the frantic applause had scarcely died away when a sinister stranger entered the hall and approached the high seat of the burgomaster with determined steps. I wonder what that was all about. It's too bad it's cut off. Now I'm interested in this dark figure who came. What a kooky story there. But maybe they did dig up one of these giant bones and they expected to put themselves on the map with it. Well, whoever knows what happened to it, but it'd be interesting to know what happened to it. That's wise up there. Okay, so off to Austria here. Mittendorf and giant skeletons. And it's just a little paragraph. And I guess this is, again, this is what's reported in the English speaking press. Who knows what was reported in all the foreign press. Maybe there's lots of accounts on that end, and who's collating that, who's putting that together, who of our friends in Europe have put anything together over there, or could they put anything together over there? It would be nice if somebody would, and translate it into English so we can hear about more accounts there. I'm sure there are many more. We hear about these. Are these the only ones? So, not counting the ones that were never reported for whatever reasons, they just weren't. And I'm sure there were many of those as well. There could be more. Who knows? Okay, so it just starts over here. This other news in this, I guess, this news page is from some American press, I believe. News Herald, Hillsborough, Highland County, I guess, Ohio, 1897. So, a heathen burying ground with giant skeletons was recently dug up at Mittendorf in the Austrian South Kermagut. Many of the bodies were 6 foot 7 inches tall. They were all buried with the feet to the east, each enclosed in a circle of stones with a stone under the head. Large earrings and finger rings were found on them, and one skeleton held a knife in its hand. No signs of Christian burial were discovered. Okay, so who knows how far back Christianity really goes, folks. But in any case, here we have, and again, if this was dug up in America, they would say, it's nothing, just 6 foot 7. But there in Europe, they make a big deal out of it because they realize what their average height was in the past there. So, these people are of extraordinary size, and he's just so interesting. Again, burials seem so very similar to ones in the Americas, including one in the Americas where these giants were buried with these casks filled with giant corn. That was very interesting to me. They had these clay casts, actually fired clay casts, filled with giant corn kernels of this giant corn that still can be grown today. I showed pictures of it on this channel, of this giant species of corn. But how interesting! It was buried with stones underneath their heads. Well, there were reports of giant skeletal remains in the Americas with stones and these clay casts buried underneath their heads. So again, more similarities there. So just a quick little paragraph in there, but again, coming from Austria, we only have a couple from Austria, but they're still very interesting. So again, another one of these giants in armor here from the medieval times, and Bartolomeo Bon was from Riva del Garda in Trenton, Italy. He served as the Archduke of Tyrol Ferdinand II, who served Rudolph at Ambras Castle near Innsbruck, located in present-day Austria. He accompanied Ferdinand's nephews in the royal tournament in Vienna in 1560. His armor is indeed housed in the Ambras Castle Museum, Austria, and is on display for anyone visiting the castle to see. People sometimes ask, where is the evidence for giants? That's like asking, where's the internet? In both cases, it's close by. The armored mannequin is 2.660 meters tall, about 8 foot 5 inches. People have a tendency to ignore measurements and go with lower estimates, but they are not worth mentioning. The tallest man living today, according to the Guinness Book World Records, is Sultan Kosin, who lives in Turkey and measures 2.51 centimeters, about 8 foot 2 inches. The tallest man in medical history, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, is Robert Percy Wallow, born in Alton, Illinois, USA in 1918. When last measured in 1940, Wallow was found to be 2.72 meters, 8 foot 11 inches. Robert Wallow and Sultan Kosin have one thing in common that Bartolomeo Bone does not. Robert Wallow and Sultan Kosin are of unnatural height caused by a disease, either gigantism or acromegaly. So Robert Wallow and Sultan Kosin are not a good comparison of natural healthy height. When we look into the past, we don't find little monkey men. We see human beings that are bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter, and healthier in the past. The same is true with giant animals mislabeled extinct. I think if we didn't have recent history, Bartolomeo academia would say that he was an extinct line of humans. 7 foot 9 inch. Let me place some perspective. The second tallest person in basketball is about 7 foot 3 any given year. Manute Bol is only 7 foot 7 inch and one of the two tallest players in basketball history. Yasutaka Okayama was 7 foot 8 inches, the tallest person ever to be drafted into NBA. There's a repeated statement that people are taller today than in the past. It is simply not true. Here's a comment about Bartolomeo Bone from one of the world's top giant researchers, Mika Ewers. The The Guinness Book of World Records has no qualms in the last 60 years calling humans 7 to 9 feet tall giants, which is admittedly not very politically correct nowadays. In armor, supposing he was 8 foot 5 inch, fully clothed, he wouldn't fit in a standard size ceiling room. That's sort of a Goliath sized individual, I suppose. That's a substantial find, Chris Leslie says, I guess. So, in any case, again, another one of these accounts of, an armored knight in armor from medieval times. These giant knights seem to be all over the place in medieval times, and I seem to remember seeing also in the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe there when they fight I guess the German hordes there from in the forest up there. This giant warrior comes out swinging a giant hammer or something like that, and he's cutting down all these Romans with this giant hammer and everything. Certainly not suffering from gigantism or acromegaly, okay, with these or having all these health issues that they know of. People with gigantism and acromegaly, they're not swinging around giant hammers and stuff like that, or giant axes, or whatever that guy had. All right, so just consider that there were pockets of these giant humanoids living around the world, and continue to this day with the giants of the Fiji Islands and Watusi, whoever's left of them, right? So giants seem to have survived into modern times, but not a lot of them because somebody genocided them all. Who do you think that was? Okay. And if we have been engineered, like I believe we have been engineered by somebody or whatever, they probably screwed up a little bit because we seem to be sort of these ultra violent individuals. So, maybe that has a lot to go along with the intellect there to go along with it. And, I know how some people have referred to Bigfoot as a gentle giant. Some people, disagree with that, but there's a lot of people who call him a gentle giant. And what is a gentle giant anyway? Where'd that come from? Are we talking about the good giants that people forgot about and whatnot? No, they're all bad. If you want to talk to L.A. Marzulli and people like him, or maybe even Fritz Zimmerman, I don't know, but, they're all bad, right? No, they're not all bad. So, more stuff you hear on my channel that you don't hear anywhere else, folks. Almost everything on my channel that you hear is alternative to even the alternative. And with that, we're going to close this. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed those accounts from Germany and Bavaria and Austria. And I've isolated some account from Germany that I want to go over. That's a rather old account from Germany that I'd like to talk about. That's going to be my next video, okay? So anyway, if you like the video, please hit the like. If you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. And again, I got that radio interview coming up with Mike from Conflict Radio on December 14th. I hope it comes out good. All right, guys. Anyway, Bugcat7 signing out. Peace.